Today I spent the day bleaching out black box dye on previously foiled hair. And I gotta tell you, this black box dye will not leave her hair no matter what we do. So I'm gonna tell you what we did and take you through a step-by-step of how we did it. This is what my client's hair looked like before. We had previously done foils on her about 4 or 5 months ago. As you can tell, those foils in the first few inches where they're done were lifted on virgin hair, and beyond that, it was black box dye. So her ends were still quite warm, they were quite orangey, and then the roots lifted nicely, and now it's a few months later and she's like, I want to go super blonde and I want to get rid of this black box dye. So we had a couple of options, and one option was, yes, a far more expensive option where I could book the whole day and I could platinum card her whole head using multiple formulas of bleach to handle all these different areas, several bands of color from her at-home application. She's done time and time again on her hair, her natural regrowth and her previous foiled on her natural regrowth, as well as her previous foils on the black box dye. There is so much going on here that this would be a full day. And you can see how thick her hair is. She's got a ton of hair. She's also a young woman and doesn't have a ton of extra money to spend. She doesn't have $1,000 to spend on her hair in one day. So what we decided to do was we said, let's do a full bleach out. A full bleach out instead of a platinum card is going to be more cost effective for her, and it's going to be a little gentler on the hair. We can see where her hair gets to and kind of take it from there. Now what she wants for her hair is she wants to see it at like a level 8 beige, maybe 7.5, 8 beige, and a warm beige too. So I figured this is somewhat doable. This isn't the most unrealistic expectation. We're not going for an ice white right now. We're aiming for something that's in the region of blondes, but not super unrealistic. So what I did here was I mixed up in my bowl, I mixed up 7 Volume and Blonde Me. And I'm applying that, I know, to the roots straight up. And a lot of people are probably gonna come for me in the comments, and that's totally okay. But also, there is more than one way to skin a cat. And this is going to be the most cost effective and least damaging way to bleach out all of her hair without putting her in foils that sit in her hair for hours and hours and hours with 20 volume, potentially snapping her hair all off. We are treating her with a complimentary K18 treatment as well today. And honestly, it's just kind of let's lighten the hair, see where it gets, and we'll go from there. She's totally okay with that being the reality of the situation, which oftentimes is going to be the situation when you do have a dark box dye in your hair. So if you are watching this and you are wondering how to box dye or bleach out the box dye in your own hair or a friend's hair, I'm just here to let you know that the reality of the situation is you're going to have staining. That black box dye has so much pigment in it that it's going to have stained the cuticle of the hair as well as the cortex, everything inside as well. You're just going to have that. And what we did today was we toned and formulated to help blend that as much as possible. I'll show you that toner formula later. But right now, let's go into my application of the bleach, how I did it and why I did it this way. And of course, anybody who watches Brad Mondo videos must be screaming at their TV or their phone right now, screaming like, don't brush the bleach. And while I agree that it's not good to brush fragile, freshly bleached hair, this hair is not post-bleached right now. It is old previous highlights, whatever. You still have to brush the hair, but I'm brushing the bleach through into the hair. I'm combing it through with a very soft bristled brush that's going to help to saturate and penetrate through the hair. I hate using that word for hair videos, but I don't know what else to use. Penetrate through the hair evenly everywhere because we have the most uneven canvas right now. Our ideal goal today is to get us as even as possible. And while we know that the ends are still going to be warm, especially based on our last time's lift, that we're trying to make her a more wearable color. And she wants to be brighter for summer, and she's okay with doing something that's going to be a bit of a project. When she has money, she comes in, we do a little bit more at a time, we do the next service, whatever we see fit. So this is something that works for some of my younger clients who, they work part-time or they work minimum wage jobs. It's not like they have all the money in the world to spend on a 8-hour day at $140 an hour for color corrective. If we did, I would have done, yes, a platinum card service with multiple formulas of bleach, picked out every hair, done different formulas for each band in the hair, all that hootalolly. However, that's also potentially extremely damaging for any hairs that do get caught into foils that are stronger than they need to be. And what we had here today, with the with the help of K18 as well, we had no breakage. Her hair ended up feeling quite healthy, shiny, and soft. And I think that's all over what we care about the most, is that her hair is still going to be long and healthy after this, and that we're on our way towards what she wants. So again, we are doing color correction, not color perfection. This is Schwarzkopf Blonde Me, which I find has a very strong lift. And this is 7 volume. So it's the lowest possible volume you can use for Schwarzkopf Blonde Me in their line. So that means we're going to be lifting low and slow. And I am applying it roots to ends, and a lot of hairdressers say apply mids to ends and leave the roots out. That's totally okay to do. That's another way to do it. However, I find once bleach is in the hair, it's extremely difficult to move that hair around and reapply to the roots quickly and evenly, which I feel like are the most important things, is doing your application evenly with saturation as well as quickly, because you want to have things even out. So applying from roots to ends is how I'm doing it here. And the way that I'm trying to get a little more lift out of the ends here is by putting just the ends of where the black box dye is into a foil, and that will help keep it incubated, keep it moist and warm. And the warmth will also help to get a little extra lift in this lightener as well. Her natural level being a level 6 means that she would get to a blonde with a 7 volume and Blonde Me with enough time. So I'm not really concerned about that. In fact, I actually don't want it to overlift, which is why I'm not using 20 volume, because we do have previous foils in there. And even though those foils only really lifted to like 8.5, I don't really want to be like stretching her hair's capacity too thin. Again, we're trying to keep the health of her hair in mind, which is why a fast application on a low volume developer is going to be our best bet here for what's in range of her price budget. So I apply super, super generously to the root, because when you're taking sections like this, it's pretty easy to miss a piece, which is why you can see me massaging the lightener into the hair so much, and I'm combing through every single piece. And another key thing here is that I'm doing every single piece the same. I'm not getting lazy with my application and just forgetting to brush through some pieces and brushing through others, because that's how you get little spots in the hair where you think you covered everything and really you did miss a spot. And guess where that spot's going to be? It's always going to be in the front or the top. I don't know who made that rule, but that is apparently the rule. As soon as you get lazy and you start changing how you apply things that are meant to be canvas eveners, if you start changing your application process partway through the process, you're going to see it. So whatever you start with, you need to finish with as well. So super, super thick application. And the way that I've mixed this is more to like a Greek yogurt consistency. I find that mixing to consistency is how I like to work with my lighteners, rather than mixing to like their recommended ratios personally. Now, it's not something I would always advise, but I've been working with this lightener for many years and I know it pretty well. And I feel like mixing it to a Greek yogurt consistency will allow it to stay moist enough that it will keep going for a very long time, but also it will be more workable through the hair rather than being a little bit more drier and powderier. And which, when you have a thicker formula, they always say thicker is quicker. And I agree with that in some ways. And I do agree with that with bleach. But the thicker the consistency, the quicker it's going to lift. And again, I don't really want the quickest lift in the world, but I also don't want to water down my formula too much and cause it to be not powerful enough. Because again, I'm using a 7 volume. As you can see, these ends are super orangey and coppery, and we are going to have a really fun time with formulating what comes next. But overall, I'm pretty happy with this bleach root application. This took us probably an hour, hour and 15, and then we let it sit for a while. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. Essentially, I did this all over the head, and I've used a back bib as well to keep my area really clean. And this back bib is going to be folded up over top of the hair to keep everything incubated and warm as well. Because if you have any kind of air conditioning in the space that you're working in, that's also going to affect your lift. I don't know if many of you know this, but the temperature of the human's body that you're coloring the hair of and the temperature of the room that you're working in are going to like very, very intensely affect the lift that you're going to get. So if the person you're working on has a uterus and they are going through like their monthly, or they are going through even menopause, their body temperature is going to be elevated, which means that their lightener is going to lift faster. So keep that in mind when you have someone in your chair. I wouldn't recommend asking them, but if you're very close with this client, maybe, the topic comes up. And keep that in mind, that their body temperature being higher is going to affect the lift of their hair, as well as the temperature of the salon or the space you are working in. So if you find that the foils you're putting in for your clients are just taking forever to lift, I'd recommend using a back bib or a plastic wrap, something to cover the hair and keep it from that cool air hitting the head and cooling down those foils, and keeping it nice and warm, or turning off the AC overall if you can. However, sometimes working in a warm environment is very uncomfortable for the staff, and it can be uncomfortable for other clients as well. But if you're wondering why your foils are just slowing down during certain seasons, especially when you work in a larger salon like this, transitional seasons, our HVAC hasn't quite figured out that it is not as hot as it is for other people over here in Canada. Our summers aren't very warm, and they're actually quite cool. So our HVAC unit seems to think that we need lots of cooling, but really we actually need warmth. It's quite cold here in the salon. So again, this is why I like to insulate my clients with a bit of plastic wrap or with a back bib while they're processing, so it keeps everything going, it keeps it even, and keeps everything moisturized and and incubated. This is what the hair looks like after I've applied immediately. You can see that one side has lifted up a little bit, and the other side that I just finished applying to, they don't have a huge difference in color, which is what I'm wanting. I'm wanting low and slow, and to incubate those ends to make sure that those ends lift up nicely, but without too much aggression, because again, those previous foils, we don't want them to snap off the old highlights. Now that the hair's been sitting for a little while, I'm just gonna show you what the inside of these foils look like. This is the side I finished with first, so I'm folding over those foils to incubate and keep the other side warm. And we're gonna see what the ends and mids look like after some time of processing. It's probably been like 20 or 30 minutes into it so far, not super long, but the lower we go down, the more we're gonna see more lift, hopefully, because those ones have been in for longer. So as you can see, there is still some orange staining in those ends. That black box dye, whatever brand it is not coming out. It's gonna stay in there and it's gonna stain, and the color it's gonna stain is gonna be super orange. So we're really gonna have to fight that orange pigment. But the roots are lifting quite nice. They're lifting to a nice yellow 9, 8.5, 9. And the ends, the lower we go down, the darker those low lights are. And you can still see the highlights in between them that we foiled last time. Those are lifting really beautifully. So I'm actually very happy with the fact that we did previous highlights here, because that's gonna help blend our color as much as anything can. And what I like about this is that we are getting a softer transition from the roots down to the ends because of those previous foils, rather than getting two super solid looking different colors, because that's a very, very difficult thing to blend and formulate with. But when you have little bits of the light coming down into the ends, it helps disrupt that kind of hard color and makes things a lot easier. The lower we go down towards the base of her neck, the darker that staining is going to be, though, because she would have reapplied her color multiple times. Versus at the top, we have shorter layers, which we did last time to kind of help with this whole transitionary year of coloring her hair. Is every time she comes in, we're going to be doing a bit of a cut, and we're going to give her more layers, and that's going to help get rid of that old black without necessarily getting rid of all of her length. So yeah, the longer the hair is, all the longest stuff is all at the bottom and at the back, and that stuff has had the most reapplications of the black color. Now this is what her hair looks like after it's been sitting for about 40 minutes to an hour. and she is lifted beautifully. Those roots are looking glorious. Those are going to be a bright yellow, and those ends are looking great on the top layers, which is exactly what we wanted to see. And overall, this is going to give us a very soft transition from roots down to the ends. And again, there's nothing we're going to be able to do about that staining. We're just going to try to conceal it as much as possible, make a wearable color for the client, and kind of go from there. Because again, we're not really wanting to cut off all of that length today. We're not ready to get rid of it. We're not ready to do that. And I never force my clients to do haircuts. That's not ethical. That's not okay. But here we are doing her washout. As you can see, you're going to see how yellow this hair is. And if you watch RuPaul's Drag Race, you're going to know exactly what quote I'm thinking of once I start rinsing those very orange ends. After I've finished rinsing her and shampooing her, I'm going to apply my K18 mask at the chair and detangle her, and I'm going to show you what that all looks like. As you guys saw in the preview, this is what her hair looks like. Now, what we are avoiding today is two extremely cut off looking areas of light versus dark. We are still getting little highlights that go all the way down into the ends, which is great. And I gave my client two options. Either we do a shadow root and low lights to help blend this in more, or we start with our fill color, see how we feel about that, and go from there. And she said, I don't really want to go too dark, so let's just start with the fill toner and see what that looks like. So I said, okay. So our fill color today is Schwarzkopf Vibrance, and I used a full bottle, so it's I think 60 grams of 846, and I used 20 grams of 80. So this is a combination of beige, chocolate, and natural, because we want to fill the hair and bring it all down to like one level and try to keep it as light as possible. And overall, it looks like it's neutralizing and blending so well while it's processing here. This looks so great. Now, if you use toner, you know exactly what toner does, is it looks incredible sometimes as it's processing, and it rinses out half of the formula when you rinse it out. And of course, that is what today did, that's fine. But my client overall loved the look. She's like, I just want to stay light. I want to think about it for a couple weeks and see if I want to add on a root shadow or if I want to deepen the color. But right now, I'm actually loving how light it is. And to her, if the lightness and the length and the health mattered the most, we got what she wanted. And even though, yes, there is some copper staining still in those ends, and she has a warmer color at the ends than it does at the root, it obviously picks up so much more on camera than it does in real life. In real life, she looks pretty blended. But yeah, you know what? I'm just happy that my client is happy, and we're working with her budget, and in a couple of months she'll come in and we'll do another toner. We may darken it down or do a little bit of a root shadow and some low lights to blend things in. But again, we're kind of following her lead here with what she wants to do, because she hasn't been this blonde, I don't think, ever. And I think she's just so happy with it right now. And I think when she's ready to cut off those ends, we're going to see so much more of that blonde come through, as you can see with me moving the hair around. And again, this is color correction, not color perfection, so I understand that the result isn't going to be a 10 out of 10. But I'm quite happy with where we ended up today, and I want to hear what you guys think. Do you guys think that we did the right move, or is there something else you would have done if this client was in your chair? Would you refuse the service? Because I know some people just don't want to do black box dye corrections. And sometimes black box dye has the most stubborn nature and will not come out. And that's okay. We just work with it. We work with what the hair wants to do, and we try to keep it as healthy as possible. So this is the overall look. Again, pretty happy with it. 2 stars and a wish. My 2 stars would be my application for my bleach and my color formulation for my toner. I'm quite happy with that. My wish is that I wish the black box dye didn't stain so much, but there really is nothing else I can really say about this. I think it's as good as we could have gotten in the time we had and in the budget we had. If you made it this far into video, thank you so much for sticking around, and I hope to see you guys on my Instagram page. I am Bleach Daddy on Instagram. Let me know what your thoughts were on this video in the comments below. I'd love to see what you guys think, and yeah, I'll see you guys at the next one. Have a great evening.